Hello, and welcome to CSE 1322, as I try to remember the course number, for fall of 2020 at Kennesaw State University. My name is Enda Sullivan, and I'm going to be the instructor for this section of the class. This is for section W01, which is a purely online asynchronous version of the class. This class is the second in a series that we call FYE, which is the first year experience, or the third in a sequence if you started with 1300. In order to have gotten here, you all probably took, hopefully, CS 1321 in a previous semester and got a B or greater in that class as the prerequisite to be here. So this class is going to be a similar class to 1321. We're going to focus on a lot of the programming aspects, a lot of object-oriented methodologies, and also we're going to talk about problem solving a lot. We're going to go through a lot of different examples. So again, my name is Enda Sullivan. Enda is an Irish name, if that's relevant to you. I was originally born in Dublin, Ireland, but I've lived here in the South for, well, a million years. So it's pronounced Enda. I'll honestly accept mostly anything because I realize it's a weird name. Edna, that will get you in trouble. I am not an old lady. But any other thing that sounds like Enda or Enda or anything like that is fine. So that's my name. I am teaching this class. I'm also teaching a couple of other classes this semester. I have a data structures class and also a cryptography class. And this is not my first time teaching here at Kennesaw. I've actually taught part-time in the past, but it's been a couple of years since I've taught a class here. So there we go. So everything about this class, 1321 and 1322, are going to be stored online at the FYE website, which you guys are probably very familiar with already when you took 1321. But in case you've forgotten it, please etch that URL into your brain. You're looking for ccse.kennesaw.edu, and this is /FYE. And what that's going to pull up looking like is, it's not the right window. That's not the right window. There it is. That's going to have all of the information that you might need on here. It has things like the schedule for the class. So if I go to the course schedule and I click here for 1322, you're going to see our schedule of what we're going to cover each day, when the quizzes are, and all of that. So that's a very important document. All of the slides that I go through are going to be on here as well. I'm just going to duplicate that tab real quick and then back up so that I go back to the main page. All right, so if we go under resources, you will find in here all of the different lecture slides. So literally today we are going through 1322, Welcome to FYE. And every day we're going to go through some of these slides. The order may change a little bit because we have rearranged a few things around. You probably also have a lab section of this class that you're taking. That's a completely separate thing. I mean, it isn't because it's related to what we're talking about in the class, but you're going to have a different graduate TA as your lab assistant in that section. And so I would say if you have questions that are related to the labs, you should start with the graduate TA that you're working with in your lab. And if you still have problems, then you're obviously welcome to come to me with anything else. But just bear in mind that there are 130 students enrolled in this section, so I'm going to have a lot of emails, and that's cool, and I'm always happy to help, but you'll probably get a faster answer if you go to the GTAs because they are a lot closer to you and have smaller sections. All right, so I mentioned the schedule. In the resources area, there's also a lot of things that are useful here. There is no real actual book assigned that you have to go by, but we do have two books that are listed here, Java, 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 and also Fundamentals of Computer Programming with C#. Much like the previous section, this class is being taught with a lot of different majors, and different majors have different requirements for what language they have to know. So when we teach the class, we're going to teach it in a language agnostic way. I'm going to not dwell too much on the syntax. I'm just going to mention the syntax for each of the two languages and how they differ. To be completely honest with you, Java and C# are extremely similar languages. There's a few syntactical differences between the two, but you're going to find that many, many things overlap, and anything that you know in one language, you can certainly Google how to do it in the other language. And I will also mention up front that the individual syntax of the language is the least important part of this class. Yes, you have to know the syntax in order to be able to code. That by itself does not make you a coder. The reality is you have Google, and so does everybody else. And in reality, everybody looks up syntax online. I will do it quite frequently throughout the class because you're going to find that there are things I just don't remember what the object name is or what the method is or what parameters it's expecting. I'm going to look that up. That is expected. Don't feel bad about looking something up online. You're always going to have to do that. What makes somebody a software developer or a coder is that they know how to use the material that they're looking up online, not that they have memorized every possible object and method. So don't spend time memorizing things. Understand how they work. That's what's way more important in this class. And that's why it's called programming and problem solving, because the problem solving is what matters. It's you going out and being able to solve an issue. All right, also on here, you've got some information about some old exams and some practice banks, and there are videos. This section's being taught 3 different times this semester. There's my section, which is an online only, and then there are 2, I believe, in-person sections, which are probably called O1 and O2. I'm not honestly positive. One of them is being taught by Dr. Hassan, and this is his YouTube channel. So if you don't understand something that I say, you are certainly welcome to click there and watch his version of it, because his version may clear it up for you. I fully recognize that everybody learns differently. So I have my way of teaching, and Dr. Hassan has his way of teaching. And there's also Dr. Malcolm teaching as well. So feel free to use other resources. Matter of fact, for any topic that we cover, if you Google it, you will find videos on Khan Academy, you will find videos on YouTube, on anywhere that you can find them, where people explain those same topics. Nothing that I say is proprietary. I guarantee you that. I am teaching the same class that millions of other people have taught. So if what I say doesn't make sense, or it's confusing, or you get lost in the weeds of my example, I encourage you to go watch other classes and see what they get. That might be helpful. You actually have a lot of resources here. You have me, you have the book, which I just showed you up here, the free book. You also have all the slides, which are going to have examples in them. You have your TA, who is going to run your lab section, where you have the ability to do the different assignments over there, and that will also help you learn. How do you learn to be a coder? The answer is, well, you do it. And yes, it does thoroughly involve pulling your hair out. And if at the end of this section you don't slightly hate a computer, there is something wrong with you. You're supposed to slightly hate the computer. Computers are really dumb. They only do exactly what you tell them, and very frequently you don't tell them what you actually mean. You will see me repeatedly forget to put semicolons at the ends of lines and do all kinds of stupid things, because, completely honest with you, I am teaching in 3 different languages this semester, so I am going to confuse them all the time, because I'm going back and forth between them. And in your professional life, the same thing is going to happen. The chances that you will have one language and that's what you're going to code in for the rest of your life, 0. Because in 5 years, the languages that you're using today will no longer be the most popular languages, because some idiot will come along and create something that's better and newer and more whizzy bang, and you're going to have to transition over to it. Or at least there'll be new versions and new libraries and methods that you will be able to use within the language of your choice. So don't get tied to a language. This is not a religious war. It's not something that people get stuck on. Don't do it. It doesn't matter. The language is irrelevant. What matters is that you can code. And honestly, once you start thinking of the world that way, then it doesn't matter what problem you're thrown at, because you'll look at it and go, okay, well, this is actually something that's going to be easier in this language because I know that they have a library that already does that, and I don't have to recode all of that from scratch. Or I'm integrating into a system that only supports these 2 languages, and I only know this 3rd language. Well, I'll just switch and move to one of the other languages. It's fine. It is what it is. So that's why we're doing this with multiple different languages. Part of it is because we kind of have to, because we have students from different disciplines who have different requirements for languages. But honestly, it's really important that you don't get tied up on your language. So these are resources. There are millions of other resources out there. All of them are available by Google. You guys are smart people. You are going to do this whether I told you to or not. Just go look stuff up. It's fine. I have no beef with you ever doing that. As far as IDEs are concerned, if you haven't tripped over Replit, it's a really cool little online site. This is it here. When you come to Replit, you have to sign up for an account. It is free. Once you're signed up, it basically gives you a window where you can type code and then a run button where it automatically compiles it and shows you the output. It supports C, C#, Java, C++, and 50 other languages. It's really cool. It's really simple. It's really easy to use. You don't have to install anything. I'm actually teaching these classes on a Chromebook, so I have a compiler installed. I have an IDE, but I'm going to use this most of the time because, well, it works and it's just there and it's free. So why not? So I'd encourage you to use that for any little examples. Any example that I post in class will automatically be available. And so the URL is repl.it slash, and then my username is @EndaSullivan because, well, that's my name. The E and the S are capitalized. I don't know if that's relevant. It probably is. But if you go there, you'll see all the examples from class. As far as the IDEs that you'll use, for Java, we're going to use IntelliJ, which you can download the community edition for free over here. And if you're in C# or C++, which is not relevant to us, then you're in Visual Studio 2019, which hopefully you already have installed because you've been through this. So you probably already have your IDEs, but if you don't, go ahead and get them installed and get them up and running and fight whatever silliness that you might have to do with that. So those are the resources on there. The policies are listed here. So you have all the usual academic misconduct, don't cheat, late work, and so on and so forth. I would encourage you to flip through all of that. There are a couple of things that are different this semester from previous semesters. If you are used to an attendance policy in 1321, there is none this semester because of COVID-19. We are not giving any kind of extra credit for attendance. I strongly encourage, attendance is obviously a moot point in this exact section because we're an online only. I encourage you to watch the videos. I think you will find them useful, and ask questions, come to the office hours and have questions, do your labs and make sure that you're understanding everything that's going on there. When it comes to the tests, I don't think we're going to use ProctorU. I think some things have actually changed there. I don't know the ins and outs of the test, but I'll give you details about them as we go. They certainly will be posted in the schedule. So make sure you're paying attention to the schedule. And please note this asterisk up here, which says subject to change. So don't read this now, close it, and then check in on the day of the first test thinking that everything's hunky-dory. It is conceivable we might have to move the test. As you are probably aware, there's a pandemic going on and everything is crazy and the world is on fire and we don't exactly know how things are going to go this semester. So that asterisk is a very important asterisk this semester. We may have to change something. So please, please keep up. Where are we posting all of this information? The answer is almost everything that we do is going to be in D2L. So if you're familiar with D2L, hopefully you are, log in, you're going to see this section. And in this section, you're going to have information about the upcoming tests, the upcoming quizzes, and all the lecture slides. All these videos are obviously posted in there. That's how you got to this. So just make sure you're keeping up with detail. All right, so let's flip through some of these slides and talk about the various different things. Why are you here? And the answer is, well, because you need to be, because it's a requirement for your degree, most likely. Or maybe you just really love hanging out watching videos of me, which is weird. So hopefully you took 1321 and you got a B in it, or an A. Ideally, you got an A. And it made perfect sense, and you're excited to learn more about programming. And that's what we're here for. That's what we want you to be doing. You may be taking this because it's a requirement and you're thinking, ugh, I would prefer to be doing anything but this right now. And that's fine. I get it. Some people are like that. But I realize that everything that you do in your life is going to involve a computer. When I was in my undergrad program, which was 7 billion years ago, of course, when the dinosaurs roamed the earth, at that point they were saying every career is going to need a computer. And that was true then. It's really true now. There is no career that you're going to interact with where you don't have to understand how to interact with a computer, how to use a computer, and in many cases, how to program a computer. Even if you're not actually directly programming, many people have smart homes at this point, right? And you have maybe a couple of light bulbs that you can turn on and off remotely through your Alexa or your Google Home or whatever it is that you might have, as I look around to make sure nothing in the house just woke up. So cool. But what happens if you wanted to do something a little bit more than that? When I turn on the TV and I start watching a show, maybe automatically dim the light. Well, that's something that you would actually write as basically an algorithm, and there are ways to do that. IFTTT is an example of something that allows you to take one input from one thing and then do something else with it based on another thing. It's a bunch of if statements, which we're going to cover in here. But that's a real world example where people do that in their house. And you might say, well, I don't need to do that. And you're probably right. Life will go on without being able to turn on and off a light bulb by voice command. but it makes your life easier, and that is the way the world is going. Everything is becoming computerized. Light switches are becoming computerized. Light bulbs are becoming computerized. I have to patch my light bulbs because reasons. Why? Because they run firmware and they need patching for security reasons in case somebody hacks my light bulb. But anyway, there you go. So you are going to use code no matter where you are. So I highly encourage you to pay attention in here, ask lots of questions. If you are a software developer, software engineer, or you're heading down that path, you are going to eventually get to an interview. And when you get to that interview, they are going to hand you a marker, make you get up on the board and write some code. Maybe they do it in a little VM or in an Amazon instance or whatever it might be, but they're going to make you do that. For the last 16 years, I worked in industry and I conducted interviews a million times, and people walked in and I handed them the marker and made them go write code. And a big part of how we decide whether they're going to be capable or not is whether they understand the fundamentals. I don't care if they made a syntax mistake. That's not the relevant thing that I'm checking for. I'm checking that they actually understand when you would use a loop, when you would use an if statement, how the loop works. Did they actually terminate it correctly? Did they solve the problem that I gave them on the board? That's a big part of why you're getting through here, because at the end of this, once you get your degree from KSU, you're going to want a job, because it turns out eating is good and money helps you eat. So finding a job, super important. Being able to get through a technical interview, very important. You need to understand these basic concepts that we're going to go over here. Expect to spend 6 to 10 hours per week over the 15 weeks or 16 weeks, however long it is. That's just a guideline of how long it's going to take. The lectures that I'm going to post are going to cover the material. Hopefully, they're going to explain them pretty well to you. I would strongly encourage you to flip through the Java book that's linked on the site as another way of doing it. And then the rest of the time, you're going to be coding. From a practical standpoint, I need you to understand how to do things. When you're in the lab, you're actually going to do those things, but I need you to understand how it works, not just being able to copy and paste code from somewhere and not really understand it. All right, so there are two parts to this course, as I mentioned. There's the lab part, there's the in-person class. The lab is where you're actually getting your hands on and doing the work, and you're doing the actual code. There are two versions of the lab. There is a C++, no, there is a Java version of the class, and there is a C# version of the lab. Sorry, I'm going to say that again because I made two mistakes in that sentence. The lab has two different versions, Java and C#. Depending on which major you are, and depending on which language you need to be coding in, you need to make sure you're in the right one. If you're not in the right one, you should probably have gotten an email from the administrator of the program telling you that you're in the wrong one and you need to re-register. If that hasn't already happened, please do so. Otherwise, you're going to have problems because you're going to be in the wrong lab. The lecture, which is what I'm going to be doing, is where you're going to come to learn the topics. I'm going to teach you how the things work. I'm going to give you examples. I'm going to give some of them in Java. I'm going to give some of them in C#, and I'm going to give you some of them in pseudocode. Mostly we're going to work in Java because it's the one that I have closest in my IDE, but I'm always going to explain what the differences are from pseudocode and from C#. All right, so why do we still use pseudocode? Well, because that's how we explain the concepts. I mean, honestly, as this class goes on, the pseudocode is going to fade out. Once you start coding, you're not going to be submitting stuff in pseudocode for most of this section. Almost everything that you do is going to be in an actual language of your particular language, Java or C#. So in the previous class, a lot of what you submitted was in pseudocode, and that's just not true going forward. So we need you to start transitioning over to an actual language. But I'm still going to help you understand things using pseudocode, because sometimes the syntax just gets in the way. If you have 15 curly braces, that makes it a little harder to understand what's going on, and the pseudocode eliminates that just while I'm explaining the concept. All right, why did you need to be in the previous class? Well, because we need to make sure that you understood the concepts in 1321 before we move on to 1322. And we want to make sure that when you come out of here, you actually understand all these concepts. All right. I am one of the lecturers. As I mentioned, Dr. Hassan is teaching another section, and Dr. Malcolm is teaching another section. So there are 3 lecturers, and if you can't get me, or there's something that you don't like about how I explain something, or you have a question, you're always welcome to reach out to the other ones, and likewise I do the same for their students. In addition, you have your GTA, your graduate teaching assistant, which will be teaching your lab, and they are a great resource. Ask them any questions that you might have. All of us work together. The goal here across 1321, 1322, and 1300 is that everybody has a great experience and you learn what you need to learn. So if you can't get an answer from one person, or you need an answer from another person, just go to the other person. There's lots of resources available. Reach out. Technology that we use, your tests will all be graded through something called GradeScope, but you're going to be submitting them in D to L. So in reality, because this is an online course, you're going to do all of your quizzes and all of your tests through D2L. And I will give you the details of those when we get there. The first quiz is actually already posted. It's a quiz about the syllabus, so you need to go ahead and do that. It has a due date of, I don't remember, so I'm going to look it up before I say something stupid. It has a due date of 8/21 at midnight, so make sure that you do quiz. It's basically quiz 0. It's the syllabus policy quiz by that date. All right. Yeah, okay. As I mentioned, we're using your IDEs, which are going to be IntelliJ or Visual Studio, and REPL is what I'm going to use a lot, Replit. I don't know how to pronounce Replit. I'm sorry, it is Replit, or EPL.IT is the important thing. I'm going to say REPL, I'm going to say Replit, I'm going to say Replit. I don't know, whatever, move on. All right, D2L is the official communication channel. That's where everything is going to be. It has links to the syllabus. It has links to these videos. It has links to all of your tests and all of your quizzes. You need to make sure that you're keeping up with D2L. If you have a question, there's an email button right at the top of the screen. Press it there and that'll send it to me. And I'm happy to try and answer anything that you have. I would ask that you try and include the course number and the section just so that I know who you are. That's less relevant for me because I'm only teaching one section of this class. And if you're coming from this class, I should know. But it would still be helpful if you just tell me who you are. Be professional in your communication. Remember, this is a university and I need you to act like an adult because we're all adults here. Check your email at least once a day because I am going to send announcements and reminders in your email. You're going to get an email from me at least once a week reminding you where you need to be. And I will try to get back to you within 24 hours in general of any email that you send me. Or if I can't, I will send you an email and explain why. In most cases, I am available. I'm happy to help you out, but I am teaching other classes. So you could hit me right at the moment when I'm in class. And obviously that is going to take a little bit extra. Your withdrawal day is October 7th. And if you withdraw before that day, you will get a W. If you withdraw after that date, you get a WF, which is effectively an F. So make sure that you know drop date and you decide whether you want to drop or not. This is your decision. I can only give you advice. You will have had test 1 by the time that you get there. There are 2 tests and a final exam in this class. All right, the exams, this is regarding a synchronous exam, which is less important to us because that's more for the in-person classes. As I say, the details of how you take the exams, we'll give you those details as we come closer. So don't worry about them for right now because they're a couple of weeks away. You must specify your language when you're giving us any code. Regrades, if you have problems, you'll come to me and we'll figure it out. And we do grade the tests across professors. Most of the initial tests are going to be auto-graded, so you need to give your answer in exactly the format that it's specified. And the rest of this is for in-person, so it doesn't really matter to us. Remember that the labs, you actually do have a separate class that's the lab, and it has its own final exam, which is on the last day. But again, you're an online section, so that's going to be in the last couple of days. There's one more weirdness of this semester. Thank you, COVID. After Thanksgiving, you're not required to come back to the university, which is a complete moot point for you guys because you're all online. So, cool story. All right, resources. Remember that you've got us, you've got the professors, you've got the class website. Different majors have different requirements, and so down to the advice here. All right, so how do you succeed in this class? The answer is you show up, you watch the lectures, you ask questions when you don't understand something, you do the labs, you ask questions when you don't understand something, and you practice. Before I do each of these class sections, when I record them, I will be honest with you, I go and I write the code ahead of time to make sure that when I'm teaching it, I'm going to remember how to write the code. It's a matter of practice. You just have to keep practicing over and over and over again to get used to the syntax. If something doesn't make sense, and some of the topics that we're going to cover in this class are going to be relatively complex and they're going to make your brain hurt. Recursion is a good example of that. When we get to recursion, your brain is going to hurt. I'm sorry, it is just how it works. I'm going to explain it. It's going to sound perfectly reasonable when I explain it. Then you're going to sit down and try to code it, and you're going to have all kinds of problems, and you're going to say, I hate this. That's normal. How do you get past that? You keep going and you keep trying. Computer science is not magical. There's not a moment in your life where, well, you now know perfectly how to code everything and you will never have a problem ever again. That's not how it works. There is always going to be a small amount of a struggle, which you're going to have as you go through code. It's normal. It doesn't mean that you're dumb. It just means that computer science is hard. Because if it wasn't hard, everyone would be doing it. You picked a career that's very lucrative and there's lots of jobs because it's hard. So that's the nature of the beast. I'm going to explain everything to you very clearly, and I'm going to give you the best possible information that I can. But when you're watching a video, it's non-interactive. You're sitting there, you're laying in your couch or whatever you're doing, you've got your earbuds in, you're listening to me, you have it on, you're probably half asleep by now. And everything that I'm saying, while it's very interesting and great and wonderful, it doesn't stick with you until you actually sit down and do it. And that's why there's the lab section. But even beyond that, go do examples. If you don't know what to do, Google examples of recursion, and you will find 100 examples of recursion out there. And then you can go code a few of those, or you can follow along with the tutorial with somebody else if it's still not making sense, and so on and so forth. So practice, 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 practice. That's how you're going to win. And don't give up. If you're stuck, ask a question. You can ask one of your co-mate or your classmates, your co-mates. What's a co-mate? You can ask one of your classmates. You can ask me. You can ask your GTA. Just ask. Don't be afraid. I will never be upset with you for asking me a question. Just ask. The other thing I will say is start the assignments early. The nature of the beast is stuff goes wrong. It takes a long time to do some of these assignments because you're going to run into weird syntax errors that you don't anticipate, and then you're going to have to fight your way through that. And you're going to have to look something up and then understand it and maybe watch a video about it, and that takes time. So don't assume that you're going to be able to knock everything out in the last few minutes. You're going to need time to do it. So when you're doing your test, make sure you give yourself time. When you're doing your labs, make sure you're giving yourself appropriate time. Don't leave it till the last minute. I know you've got other classes. I know you've got life going on around you. I know you have kids and a job and all the other things that go on. That is what it is, but don't leave it till the last minute. If you start early and you get working on it, you can get it done, get it off your plate, and move on to other things. All right, read the textbook, because textbooks, and it's another way of explaining it. Look for online videos. I've said that all before. Final things here, we take cheating very seriously. This is an online section, and you're probably thinking, how do I cheat? I'm not going to explain to you how you cheat. But when you're taking the tests, they have to be your own work. Honestly, if you're not doing that, you're cheating yourself, because at the end of the semester, you will have a passing grade and you'll move on and you'll fail in the next class. Because everything from here on out requires that you understand all of this material. We're not going to go back over it. When I'm teaching data structures, I assume you understand object-oriented before you walk in the door. If you don't, you're going to have a problem there. So you need to actually get through the class yourself. It's fine to ask other people for help and to talk through things and to talk about concepts. As a matter of fact, that's probably one of the most useful things you can do to get used to how to code. But when push comes to shove, the code that you actually submit has to be your own code. If you're not doing that, we will catch you and you will fail the class. Don't cheat. That's all I'm going to say on that matter. As far as finals weeks are concerned, it's a really busy time for us and there's a lot of stuff happening, so your ability to get an answer back may come a little bit slower than normal. All right, finally, we care, we're here for you. That's the whole reason that I do this. I worked in industry until recently, and I have stopped because I want to come do this, and I want to help people understand computer science and be excited. At the end of this semester, I want you to come to me and tell me that you want to join this program as a undergrad TA, and you want to start helping other people, and you want to learn how to do this. That would be the best outcome for all of this. I want you to be excited about this program. I want you to have fun with it. I want you to learn stuff. I want you to ask questions. And if you decide to go into industry and go get a high-paying job, I want you to succeed at that high-paying job and be the superstar where everybody comes to you to ask you questions. And how does that happen? You show up, you watch the lectures, we go through stuff together, you do your examples, you do your code, you do your labs, you take your tests, and you get an A in this class. And at the end of the semester, you will be happier, you will understand things better, and you'll be able to move on to the later classes. So that's the intro. Everything else that I mentioned in here with regard to the syllabus, my name, my email address, they're all listed on the syllabus. You're welcome to look that up. I'm not going to go through all of that because you're smart people. You can read. Go look at the syllabus. It lists all of the policies. If you end up with COVID during the semester and you have a problem or something along those lines, there's details on there talking about what you need to do. There's a lot of other stuff going on in some of the other classes where we're rotating students in and out. None of that applies to online classes, so you guys probably have the easiest case there. If something doesn't make sense, then feel free to send me an email and ask me, and I'll be happy to answer that. The dates on the schedule will get filled in as we go forward for all the later quizzes and tests. I'm going to post a video at least twice a week. In some cases, I may break the video up into 2 or 3 videos just because it makes sense logically. But you're going to have at least 2 videos per week that I'm going to post. I'm going to tend to get them up by the weekend, and then you'll have them for that next week. And that's how this is going to work. If you have anything that you need, feel free to reach out and email me. All right, guys, well, that's it for the intro to the syllabus. I appreciate you paying attention, and I will talk to you in the next video where we're going to do a review of everything you learned in 1321. Talk to you soon.